people set out on their journey thinking the prize is at the finish line. They picture the car, the house, the applause, the recognition. But here's what I've discovered after all these years. It's never really about the finish line. It's about who you had to become on the way there. And that's why the obsession has to be with the work, not the results. Because the results are just evidence. They're the byproduct. The real reward is the person you turn into through the process. Think of it like this. If you plant a seed, you don't sit outside staring at the dirt every day, demanding to see sprouts. You water it, you tend the soil, you pull the weeds, you commit yourself to the work, and then, one day, growth shows up. Not because you obsessed over the sprout, but because you obsessed over the watering. The problem is, so many people quit before the sprout even breaks the surface. They get discouraged, they think it isn't working, and they abandon the process. But the truth is, the work was working. It just hadn't revealed itself yet. That's why the real discipline, the real mindset, is to become obsessed with showing up day after day, long before the results give you any encouragement. I've met people who put all their energy into dreaming about what life will look like when they succeed. They imagine themselves standing at the top of the mountain, but they never practice climbing. And it's not the dream that takes you to the top. It's the climb. It's the blisters, the sweat, the daily steps. You can't skip the climb and still expect the view. Here's the key. Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. That's the spirit of being obsessed with the work. If you only chase the results, you'll always be frustrated because the world doesn't hand them out freely. But if you chase improvement, if you fall in love with the grind, the results will eventually chase you. That's what this entire conversation is about. It's about building a way of living where you measure yourself, not by trophies or applause, but by the consistency of your effort. You measure progress by the work you put in today, not just the recognition that may or may not come tomorrow, because recognition fades, trophies gather dust, but the discipline you build lasts a lifetime. And once you make that shift, once you decide the work itself is the reward, everything changes. Pressure goes down, enjoyment goes up, and results start appearing almost as a surprise because you're too busy working to even notice when they arrive. That's the kind of obsession I want to share with you. Most people set their sights entirely on the outcome. They want the paycheck, the title, the applause, the recognition. They want to look in the mirror one day and see the full picture already finished. But here's the problem. You don't get results first. You get work first. You get effort first. You get discipline first. And if you're only obsessed with results, you'll quit the moment they don't show up on schedule. Think about it. Someone starts working out. 2 weeks go by, and they're frustrated because the mirror hasn't changed. So they stop. Or someone starts saving money, putting away a little each week. But a few months later, when they realize they're still far from financial freedom, they give up. Why? Because their eyes were glued to the results and not on the process that creates them. I've met people who could have done incredible things, but they couldn't handle the delay. They wanted harvest without planting, reward without sweat. And life doesn't work that way. If you tie your motivation to immediate results, you're finished before you ever really begin. The truth is, results are deceptive. They don't show up right away. Sometimes they show up much later than you expect. And in that gap between effort and reward is where most people disappear. That's the graveyard of dreams, impatience. The ones who succeed are the ones who learn to love the work. They show up not because the result is visible yet, but because the process itself has become part of who they are. You see, if you focus only on what you get, you'll quit. But if you focus on who you're becoming, you'll keep going. Because the work you do daily isn't just about producing something. It's about shaping someone. And that someone is you. That's why I call it the trap of chasing results. The trap looks like this. I'll be happy when, I'll be satisfied when. I'll keep going only if I see progress now. But if you fall into that mindset, you'll always be chasing, never becoming. And instead of building a strong foundation, you'll be living on fragile conditions, waiting for something outside of you to give you permission to continue. The shift begins when you say, I'm not here just for the trophy at the end. I'm here for the person I become along the way. That's how you escape the trap and start building a life that lasts. The process is where the real transformation happens. See, the result is only a snapshot, a moment in time. But the process is the ongoing story of who you're becoming. Every day you engage in the work. You're casting votes for your future self. Each repetition, each hour of discipline, each choice to stay the course, that's where the shaping happens. I once knew a man who wanted to become a writer. He dreamed of publishing a book that would inspire people all over the world, but he was paralyzed because all he could see was the finished result. His name on the cover, the book in bookstores, the applause at the launch. The weight of that image was so heavy that he never started. I told him, don't get obsessed with the book. Get obsessed with the page. One page, every day. And that's what he eventually did. One page became two. Two became chapters. Chapters became a manuscript. The book came years later, but by then he had already become a writer through the process. That's the secret. The work doesn't just produce results, it produces identity. A runner becomes a runner, not at the finish line, but in the daily act of lacing up shoes and hitting the pavement. A leader becomes a leader, not when the title arrives, but in the quiet moments of making decisions, solving problems, and taking responsibility when no one is watching. So the process shapes the person. And here's the beauty of it. The person you're becoming is far more valuable than any result you could achieve. Why? Because results can be taken away. Titles can be lost. Money can vanish. But who you've become, that stays. That's permanent. If you get anything from being here today, I want you to take this home, so write it down. Discipline weighs ounces, while regret weighs tons. Right? Discipline weighs ounces. But regret weighs tons. And I'll make it simple. The daily process, the small disciplines, may feel heavy in the moment, but they're light compared to the crushing burden of looking back and realizing you never became who you could have been. Every day you show up, every time you practice, every choice to persist instead of quit, that's character being built. And character is what will carry you when results seem far away. If you skip the process and demand the reward, you'll end up fragile. But if you embrace the process, you'll end up strong. And here's what's interesting. When you fall in love with the process, the results often show up when you least expect them. They sneak up on you. You'll look back after a year of faithful work and realize you've covered miles. You didn't even notice because you were too busy doing the work. That's the miracle of process. It makes the journey its own reward. Detaching from outcomes is one of the hardest lessons to learn. We live in a culture that glorifies the finish line. Titles, bank accounts, trophies, recognition. And don't misunderstand me. Those things matter. Results are important. But if they're the only reason you show up, you won't last. Because results